And so the other thing that we're going to discuss in adulthood is social development. So yes, midlife crisis is a real thing, and it does happen. A lot of times, midlife crisis, the tipping point for this to occur with an individual, usually they're in their 40s or their 50s. They've lived some life. They may be married, have children, well established, and what happens is that they feel like their life is stagnant. And if you don't know what the word stagnant is, I think about stagnant water because it just sits and sits and sits. And so sometimes people have a midlife crisis where they feel like they need to re-innovate themselves, or they need to find out who they truly are. And so that could be them buying a motorcycle, or that could be them getting divorced and moving out, or trying to figure out where they had a disconnect and they felt like they became stagnant. A lot of times, midlife crisis can occur when parents have an empty nest, and it's not to scare you, it's just discussing how, a lot of times many people get so wrapped up in raising their children that when the kids leave, they're not really sure what to do next. Also, we talk about social clocks. Social clocks are social stipulations or time frames in which you should do something. Like, oh, you should be engaged by 25 and married by 26. Definitely make sure you have a baby before 36 because your clock is ticking. And these are social time frames. It's just like you guys have social clocks in adolescence of graduating at 18. You need to graduate from high school, and then you need to go to college and graduate by 21. And those are social clocks that are put on you. Oh, you don't have your driver's license yet, and you're 17? Wow, usually everybody gets them at 16. And then when we talk about social development and as far as adulthood commitments, having a mortgage, being married, paying for a car, going to a job every single day and being on time, working late, those are adulthood commitment. So when we talk about Erickson, which I mentioned him earlier, there are stages that happen in life. So you have trust versus mistrust, autonomy versus shame and doubt, which relates to toilet training, initiative and guilt, industry versus inferiority, identity versus role confusion, intimacy versus isolation. So intimacy versus isolation is going to deal with you having relationships with friends as well as a significant other. And then you'll have generativity and stagnation. Like, are you being stagnant and boring and there's the same old, or are you doing a lot of different things and balancing new things in your life while maintaining the old ones? And then there's integrity versus despair. And so that's usually the last stage in life where you're reflective on your life. You think, oh, I did live a good life, or I did this well, or you may have despair as in, oh gosh, I didn't live the way I wanted to, and now I'm older. And there's your midlife crisis, so you can see the picture. It's kind of funny. Now, when we talk about intimacy versus isolation, this is where early adults learn to form close relationships, whether it's making friendships and having a good core group of friends, or actually seeking out and having a significant other. And so with the isolation factor, that would be choosing not to have friends or to not be in a relationship in their life. Generatively versus stagnation, and I'm sad that the picture's over it, but middle-aged adults learn to be creative and nurturing of future generations. They can also, either they're embracing of where they are in their life in their middle age, and they are great with the fact that their children are growing up, they're working, they play softball in a softball league, and they have things that are their own, but they have things with their significant other. And they embrace being a parent, they embrace being middle-aged, because it's very difficult to go from being a younger individual to being middle-aged. And there are stipulations and they feel stagnant. And so instead of being stagnant, they embrace the generativity of being active, enjoying the future generations, or they could have a midlife crisis, as in getting a younger significant other, getting a divorce, buying a Lamborghini, getting a motorcycle, cutting their hair. It doesn't have to always be something extremely detrimental. It could be just something that is a change. But with the word crisis, it does have somewhat of a negative connotation, because in a midlife crisis, they are searching and reevaluating their identity as an adult. And then you have integrity versus despair. They look back on life like, was my life meaningful? Or do I have a large amount of regret? Or am I living it up? I'm happy of where I am and look at my family and my future generations that'll carry on my family. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is Elizabeth Kübler-Ross's stages of grief. And because we're talking about this is because eventually with the life and developmental cycle of humans, we go from the womb, but we also have to address the tomb. And so in this moment, I'm going to talk to you about a couple of the stages of grief. And so they are, and you want to write them down: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And so the initial stage when we are dealing with death and grief is that we are in denial, like, this can't be happening, this can't be me, this can't be them, they cannot have left this earth, okay? And then our second one is being angry. We're angry for them leaving. We're angry that they have died. We are angry that we will no longer see them anymore on the earth. And then when we talk about bargaining, bargaining is, I would give anything to have them back. I would do, just please bring them back. I would just give my right arm to have them back here in my life. And then number 4 is depression, where you are solemn and sad and disappointed that they have left the earth. And you have to find, it's kind of like a dark place where you're sad, you're regretful, you wish you had had more time with them. And then number 5 is acceptance, which is you have come to peace with the fact that they are no longer on the earth, and that they have departed. You understand that you had a relationship with them, they were a good person, all of that stuff. So here are kind of the stages, like denial, this can't be happening to me; anger, why is this happening? Who do I blame? Do I blame the higher powers? Do I blame the doctors? Bargaining, just bring them back and I will do anything. And then depression is like you're kind of too sad to do anything. And then acceptance is I'm at peace with what has happened. I'm at peace with the fact that they have left this earth.